Yo, what is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be going over which boss mules you should make in Maplestory Reboot. Boss mules are a huge part of the game and are very important when progressing in this game. And I feel like a lot of people are misguided when it comes to making boss mules and which type of boss mule you should be making, because there are multiple different types of boss mules. A lot of people think the only type of boss mule is a Lomian boss mule that can kill Lotus and Damien, but that just is not the case. We have three different types of boss mules: CRA, CPAP and Akechi, and then Lomian mules. And we're going to be going over all three of those and what type of gear these mules should be rocking and can be rocking, the nodes they require, and the levels they should be at. This may come as a surprise, but I actually don't recommend people to make Lomian bossing mules, especially when they're first getting into making boss mules. I highly recommend CRA bossing mules, and the reason for that is because a Lomian boss mule just takes so much funding compared to a CRA boss mule, and so much more nodes, and it's better to just start off small, make a ton of baby boss mules, and then move up from there. So we're gonna get into all that right now. Actually, before we get into this, we're just gonna go over how much each of these boss mules make, just so you have a better understanding and why it's not as important as you think to make a Lomian boss mule. So a CRA boss mule brings in around 760 mil per week. A CPAP and Akechi mule brings in just under 1 bill, and then a Lomian mule brings in about 1.32 bill every week. Now, getting right into it, I highly recommend when you're first starting off making boss mules, you should start with a CRA boss mule. CRA boss mules are the least amount of funding and are honestly super easy to make. CRA boss mule can sit at around 12-star gear, epic and unique potentials. You want to have the CRA set. You want to be actively going for the reinforced Golek set. You don't have to have this, but obviously just trying to get it is definitely going to be a plus. You want to have a legendary WSE, 1 to 2 lines is fine, and then having 200-ish nodes for a CRA boss mule is perfectly fine. Also, a CRA boss mule can sit at around level 200 to 210, which is also a plus. I know one of the biggest things when it comes to boss mules is getting nodes, and that is why CRA boss mules are just so efficient. You don't need a lot of nodes, and you don't need to spend a lot of time training these boss mules, which is why I personally think these are the best boss mules to start with and are the most feasible for most players. Now, this 760 mil may be less depending on if you can kill Magnus and Vellum, and keep in mind that Legion is a massive part when making these boss mules, and I wouldn't necessarily start making boss mules until you hit 6k Legion. Once you're at 6k Legion, then you can start making boss mules. The reason for this is because your ID and boss damage is just going to be so low, and your boss mules are just going to suffer a lot from that lack of damage. Next on the list, we have CPAP and Akechi mules. These will net you around 1 bill every single week, which is a really good jump. The gear that I recommend for a CPAP Akechi mule is having 16-star gear on almost everything. Once again, having CRA. This is where you want to start having APSO gear as well. Reinforced Golek set definitely will help you out a ton. You 100% want to have a 2-line legendary WSE, weapon, secondary, and emblem. I think 500 nodes should be good enough for a CPAP and Akechi mule, and then in terms of levels, anywhere over 210 is fine. CPAP and Akechi are both very annoying as well, so these two bosses may take you some time to get used to, especially on a lower funded character. Keep in mind as well, a good baseline for all of these boss mules, you want to be able to finish all of the bosses in under 30 minutes. You don't really want to be on a boss mule for more than 30 minutes. The reason for that, you don't want to have to reuse buffs, and just being on a boss mule for more than 30 minutes in the first place just feels really bad. So if you can't kill CPAP and Akechi and everything else in under 30 minutes, I would either recommend funding it a little bit more or putting more nodes on it if needed. We do have a guide on what boss mules are best to make, so I highly recommend following that video as well when you are thinking about creating these types of boss mules. Anyway, moving on, we have Lomian boss mules. These boss mules will net you 1.32 bill per week. You're gonna need around full 16 and 17 17 star gear. You want to have reinforced Golux set for sure. Unique 2-line everything. You definitely want to have Apso set. Arcane weapon if you are trading, definitely not a necessity, but it's a plus if you can get it. And then anywhere from 500 to 1,000 nodes is recommended for a Lomian boss mule. 2-line legendary WSE, and then you want to have these Lomian boss mules at level 220 plus. Having them at 220 is fine. You get the max damage on Lotus and Damien, and the reason for getting these to 220, if you didn't know, you do get that level bonus extra damage on Lotus and Damien at level 220. And one thing to keep in mind when going for Lomian bossy mules, you want to make sure your ID is minimum 92%, which again is where that Legion is going to help you out a ton. If you are struggling Lomian, it most likely is either because of your level or your ID, so make sure you have minimum 92%. If you are having a hard time getting there, try opening some gray familiars on your mules. You can get a 15% ID line on those, which does help out tremendously. But as you can see, making a Lomian boss mule right away just is not efficient in the grand scheme of things. Making one Lomian boss mule pretty much costs you what it would cost to make 5 Seer A boss mules, which 5 Seer A boss mules would equate to around 5 bill compared to a 1.32 bill Lomian boss mule, which is just much more efficient. And the more Seer A boss mules you make, the better, because over time you will just slowly transition them to CPAP Akechi mules, and then you'll slowly transition the CPAP Akechi mules to Lomian boss mules. That's the best way I think you should go about it. Make 12 Seer A boss mules, transition all of those slowly one by one to CPAP Akechi, transition slowly those CPAP Akechi mules all the way to Lomian. This process does take time, but know there are efficient ways to go about it. I did mention that we had a best bossing mule video. I'll leave that linked in the description down below. When it comes down to making boss mules, I highly recommend just making the best boss mules possible. Even if you really want to play a class, I would just give that up and just make the most OP boss mules you can possibly make. It's just gonna save you a ton of time, and that's really all that these boss mules come down to, is how long you're on them. But anyways, I hope this video did help you guys when creating your boss mules, or which boss mules you should be creating. Once again, this process does take a long time, so don't think that you're just going to be able to like spawn in a month with like 12 Lomian boss mules. That is just not realistic. Take it slow and understand that this is a process that does take time. Anyways, if you guys did enjoy today's video, please consider subscribing. It helps us out a ton. And as always, I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.